executions where, again, it's a bit like the earlier point. It did attempt to kind of list loads of benefits. It's all about the philosophy behind the brand, and all the work that ran was very similar. It was an overnight success. We ended up sort of negotiating with Sony on how much we got paid. So the proposal I put into Sony originally, they rejected. They said it was too much money, and we're sort of going, oh, well, you know, we think we're worth it. I ended up having a gamble with their president, and he sort of said, well, I'll give you 75% of what you want, but if we hit our sales target by this date, we give you more than the 25% you haven't got. The date we had was, say, by this, I'm making this up now, but by, say, December the 21st, because it was a launch pre-Christmas. And they came into the office on December the 22nd, a big crowd of them, with a few bottles of champagne. And then a Security Corps guy walked in with a big suitcase and gave it to me. I opened it, it was full of £50 notes. It was unbelievable. It was all his money. Because they hit their sales target and gone straight past it. And so by the time we got to the following April, they were the #1 brand right across Europe in terms of sales of the games console. So it was an extraordinary launch, an extraordinary success. And it just transformed the fortunes of Sony. It made a phenomenal difference to their business. And the whole thing about standing for something became really important because what it did, it took the brand to the #1 slot in the minds of people out there that were interested in the brand. And the earlier point about widening the target audience to a much broader age group again worked. And again, I'm sure a lot of the guys in here tonight you've got your proper games console at home, which is quite normal, but it wasn't then. So there's a lot of things that happened which were really invaluable in terms of how Sony capitalised on a marketplace that they had no credentials in. So as I said, they went from 0 to hero in 6 months, which was extraordinary. But again, it was all about differentiation and thinking about it carefully and how to achieve it. Right, you all okay? We're still awake? Okay, there's one more. And then you can ask questions or whatever you want to do. Go to the bar, I suspect. That's where I want to go. Right, final one. Virgin Atlantic. Again, this is something else that another example of something that again I was personally involved with very closely back whenever. Excuse me. Okay, so sorry, let me go back to that for a second. This was again, as a thought, was very much about taking on the big boys. Virgin as a brand, that thought underpins everything they do. Their philosophical position is we're taking on the big boys. Virgin, is it Virgin Money? Have they called it Virgin Money or Virgin? Yeah, Virgin Money. You know, clearly they're going after the big names. They do it differently. They've done the same with trains and etc. 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 So that lies behind it. And this example is one of those. So our job was to launch Upper Class. Now then, who can I embarrass? Who has flown Upper Class on Virgin in the room? A young lady over there. There's one in the back. Very good. See, I've embarrassed you now. They're all going to say, how come you flew Upper Class on Virgin? So Upper Class is basically when you get on the plane, you turn left rather than turn right into the big seats. So Upper Class is a great product, but the issue back then was that Virgin as a brand had a reputation for being sort of fun, young, maybe a bit naughty. They were a slightly naughty airline with very, very few routes. It had a reputation of being the airline that band members of disgraceful rock bands flew on and got drunk and all the rest of it. So it had that kind of persona as an airline, and it's one I think that they kind of they encouraged a bit. But this started turning into a bit of an issue because because their history, of course, was music, and because that kind of ran through the brand, it ran through into the airline. It began to create a bit of an issue because with upper class you were looking at an expensive product. So instead of say going to New York, rather than it being 300 quid to fly in economy on a return flight to New York, it was say £3,000 that would be upper class. So it's a very different market, and importantly, the source of business were regular business travellers, people who go back and forth to New York. So what they're after was, you know, an entirely different group of people that could afford to pay or get the companies to pay than sitting in the posh seats at the front of the plane. So quite a big challenge. And the source of that business is British Airways. It wasn't about creating a new market. It was simply trying to persuade people that normally flew BA to fly on Virgin. So that was the job. Quite a big one. It was at the time fraught with issues and problems because in terms of the London market into New York, BA was definitely regarded as the flag carrier. I mean, it still is. But preferred by the majority of business travellers. It was the airline to fly on. I mean, you wouldn't say I'm flying on some rubbish airline. I'll go on BA. It's what people did. And they had a very powerful, and they still have a very powerful loyalty program with Air Miles. So lots of people saying there's no way I'm moving from British Airways, say, to Virgin, because I've got all these Air Miles and I want to keep getting them, and I want to keep getting them because I get free flights. So it's another kind of issue. And of course with British Airways, they had a much bigger infrastructure. More aircraft, far more routes, and a lot more money. So BA had more of everything. So a formidable brand to think about. And if you remember, one of the things I said earlier on was about how you approach things. Our view was that you had to be predatory to make it work. But you couldn't accept the fact that BA was sitting there dominating what's going on. So again, it's quite a big issue for us. And I think the issue that we had to deal with was the kind of the brand image of Virgin. It just simply didn't shine with how business people saw themselves back then. They saw themselves very much as suited and booted and a bit kind of smart. Whereas Virgin, you kind of go, well, if I walk on a Virgin plane in a suit, people are going to laugh at me. And so there were all those kind of issues they were trying to sort out. So differentiation, yet again, was the key. It's finding a way of differentiating brand in a way that's true to Virgin and will give people a reason why they should switch. Why would they change who they'd normally go with? So there were a number of issues, some of which were to do with them and some of which were to do with the environment they were in, or the environment we found ourselves in. And it was a great asset, but embracing it was not obvious on how to do it. And it meant behaving as people would expect Virgin to behave, but not attempt to behave like BA. So again, it was a difficult conundrum in exactly how do you do that. You can't copy them, don't imitate BA, do it in a different way. And the good thing about Virgin was it was seen to be innovative and a modern brand. So again, that was something that was quite good. You kind of go, well, if we can work with that, if those thoughts people have in a positive way, again, it helps. And the other thing that's going on was a bit of a kind of change in society, which no one had kind of thought, certainly in airlines, no one had thought of tapping into. The market world, the business world was changing. I'm of that well-known group called a baby boomer. That's what I am. I'm one of them. And the baby boomer generation was sort of has been working its way through politics, through commerce, banking, etc., etc., and with a different set of attitudes and a different sort of set of view. And I personally, just speaking on a personal level, I used to find BA when I was sort of like in my late 20s, early 30s. I used to find it a bit pompous. Kind of go, they're a bit stuffy, aren't they? A bit, bit bowler hat. I don't want to be like that. I want to be able to kind of dress the way I want to dress and not feel uncomfortable. And that was the way I felt. And it's my generation, to quote The Who. But it was definitely my generation. And that generation was changing society. And so you're beginning to find the top companies that come from, a grammar school in Huddersfield who happen to be particularly bright and have got to the top of the company. They weren't from a public school and they got to the top through the old boy network. So all these things are changing in society, and it was a good time to begin to perhaps leverage that, as well as the fact that Virgin was a modern brand. How could you put those things together in a way that meant something to large numbers of people? And I think the point about business leaders being younger-minded is very true. One of my sort of pet pursuits, things I enjoy. I'm a big music fan, always have been. In my youth, I used to play guitar as well in a band. And so for me, it's part of my youth. But when I meet business people, it never occurs to me that they might be the same. But over time, what I realise is, of course, the people I'm dealing with, they're like me. And a guy I've just been working with, who's the chief executive of another airline, he blurted out one day over lunch that he used to play drums in a band. I couldn't believe it. We were off. The moment he told me that, we just got on like a house on fire because we talked about music rather than about business. But the point is that generation of people were coming through the whole of society. So the point about it was a big opportunity, and again, to quote Bob Dylan, the times are changing, and they certainly were. So you're going to go, well, how do you begin to use all this in a way that could be to the advantage of Virgin Atlantic? Now that seems like a lot of different points being pulled together, but again, I'm trying to cut down 6 months' worth of work. But all of these issues are all very important. And come back to my earlier point, or two issues about this. How do you differentiate when it's very difficult in this particular sector? How do you kind of leverage in a way for Virgin which makes them more attractive than the dominant brand with BA? So that really was the big issue. So, back to this. What I want to show you, do I go back to the, yeah. What I want to show you is, it's TV cinema work. This is to celebrate 25 years of Virgin Atlantic. I think it's a stunning piece of articulation of what a brand stands for, and how everything I've just talked about has evolved into how this is expressed. Do you hear that? I was asked to write a piece last week, which was called Desert Island Ads, i.e. if you got marooned on a desert island, which ads would you like? Sounds a bit, bit suspect, doesn't it, really? But anyway, that's one of the ones I chose, and I put it almost right at the top, because every time I see it, it makes me feel really good. Like, it's uplifting, isn't it? It's like really uplifting. And the feeling you get, I think, watching it, is you go, well, there's a confident brand that, they've got an attitude, they've got a point of view. And the filming is very clever, the way it's done, because most of the observers are quite grey, like grey uniform and a grey background. They're all kind of red or whatever. And of course, the payoff at the end is all you really want to say to the target audience. When the one guy says, I should change my job, and the other one says, I should change my ticket. And that's all we're trying to say, is just think about the alternative. Anyway, so the way in which that's been done, I think is an incredible example of how to create differentiation and express the position the brand takes, where it stands for something. And you get it, you really get it. And that couldn't be, the difference between that perception of, or that positioning of Virgin versus BA is that they just like chalk and cheese. I think the great thing is that BA have done a brilliant job too, that they have. But it's a marketplace which is big enough for both brands. What they do, they keep out of London a lot of the US brands, which I think is even better. But Delta and American are not great options. So these two are some of the two leading airline brands in the world. Anyway, to finish, what happened? I forgot to do all this, didn't I? And I forgot to say all this. One of the things that they did manage to do was make the product better. And the innovation gave people the nuggets to say while flying or Virgin. So you get that great brand positioning of this is what the brand's about. But things like this one here, that's one of the things that kind of really converted me very early on, was they just did this limo thing. So if you fly upper class, they pick you up from your home, take you to the airport, you go to a straight drive in, go past all the rubbish, you get straight into their check-in. And when you get into wherever you go, like New York, there's a car waiting for you to take you to your hotel. Brilliant. Absolutely brilliant. There's no more money. So the pricing is absolutely parity with BA. You get like a car as well. And they did things like, this is very dangerous. The onboard bar, absolutely fantastic. In the front of the aircraft, you could sit at a stall and have a drink, and it was terrible. You get the other end and kind of like waddle off the plane. But it was great, And so all the things they did in terms of product help differentiate them. Anyway, so what's happened? What happened? Anyway, what happened very quickly again was that they captured a big share of the travel market. Their load factors and yield were outstandingly good. That is, filling all the seats and the return per seat. Very, very, very good. Very profitable. In a survey a little while ago, a big survey, 25,000 respondents, Virgin Atlantic was top of every criteria. This is people that are regular travellers. So best business this, best this, and best the other. They've added more and more routes, got bigger and bigger. They've continued to win loads of awards. And they've, I think, really provoked a change of attitude in the marketplace. I said right at the beginning about that sort of model of brand equity and as rising stars have a big influence on a market. Virgin Atlantic had a fantastic effect on the airline market. It made the airline market up their game on many levels because they were innovative and different, and did kind of things like the bar on the plane. And if you go to the clubhouse at Heathrow or Gatwick, they're fantastic. And again, it made BA have better places to go to as lounges if you're travelling on business. So anyway, so that's them, and I think they've done a fantastic job. Steve Ridgway, who was the CEO for 27 years, retired recently. Very nice man, great guy. I think he's done an exemplary job in brand management at the top of the company by kind of the consistency in which they've brand over time. So I've finished really. I've got two things to say. Go back to the beginning. That was the Bill Bernbach quote. I think the examples I've been talking through and the things I've been talking about, I hope help to explain that in a bit more substance, a bit more detail. But I think it's a very important factor to always bear in mind when anyone's working on a brand and on its management. And then a final thought, which is from George Bernard Shaw, which is something I often use with clients to try and get them to move into the brave zone rather than the comfy zone. How do you get into the brave bit and try and be a bit different or whatever? And I think that he probably wrote this for Richard Branson, before Richard Branson was born. But reasonable men attempt to adapt themselves to the world. Unreasonable men attempt to adapt the world to themselves. Progress is in the hands of unreasonable men. Which I think, again, is a great thought about people that provoke change and move things forwards. And someone like Branson has done that job with Virgin, and there are many other people like him. So that's me done. I'm finished.
Material going on there. Burning questions that you couldn't hold back for a moment.
No, don't be shy. Anything you like. Who's my favourite band? Yes, sir. At the back.
Yeah, I'm just a bit curious about the philosophy of a company or a brand. You mentioned 4 basic philosophies that each company or brand should adopt. I was just wondering, is it possible for the philosophies to sort of merge? So
yeah, because there's crossover, isn't there, between some of the thoughts. I think that I think in the same way that I think the tools that you learn about here, they're tools to help you analyse things, aren't they? And I think it's the same with that. What we do in practice is there are things that we use to help us think, really. And so you're right, is you take those 4 different areas and go, well, it could be that, could be that, could be that. But they're there really to kind of begin to tease out, where an answer might lie, basically, a hypothesis. What could that hypothesis be based on? And sometimes they do merge. You got a bit of that and a bit of that. So they're not mutually exclusive. They're not. Yes.
So I was just wondering, in back when you used to work at the '90s or whatever, obviously a lot of things have changed, like Facebook and like social media.
Yeah.
Do you think your job would have been easier or harder?
Before.
Was it easier then than it is now?
Yes. Yes. The principles are different. They're not. Of course they're not. The principles are the same. It is harder, though, because of the way in which people use the different channels. So, again, I'm making this up, but, broadcast television is a much harder medium to get to an audience than it would have been, say, 20 years ago. Because in this country, I think, in this country, 20 years ago, it's much easier. Because you go out in the middle of News at 10, and you pick up whatever you pick up. It's 35% of the UK population. So it is harder, but the principles are exactly the same. Exactly.
And I wonder if maybe had it easier since there's so many channels.
No.
But that makes it harder because you have
It makes it
more work
harder.
to do.
It makes it harder. It makes it harder for quite a few reasons, not least of which is the dissipation of available funds can often happen. So often companies don't do any one thing well. They do lots of things. One of the realities in, again, dealing with clients is you have to say to them, you can't do everything. You've got to make your mind up. Make your mind up about where the heart of your communication is going to lie. And that has to happen. Otherwise, it just gets spread all over the place. So it does make life harder. It does make life a lot harder. Some brands, though, there will be many brands will be very, very single-minded about the point now and go, well, we believe that broadcast television is vital to us because. So you know my John Lewis example earlier. Did any of you see the Snowman ad on TV? I mean, it was everywhere. It dominated the airways pre-Christmas. And you're going to go, well, you could see it in the stores, but I personally didn't see it on any other channel except television. And they obviously took the decision, that they had their target audience in their mind. We want to be perceived to be this big brand pre-Christmas, and they did a brilliant job, and clearly spent all their money on television. So they took that decision. Yes, sir.
The Sony PlayStation campaign that launches really linked with UEFA Champions League. Is it the most successful campaign for PlayStation?
I honestly can't answer the question. I don't know. That's the truth. I don't know. I do know that they were very successful. Those things have been successful. I haven't worked on it, by the way, for about about 8 years. So I did all the launch work and then the follow-up for about 3 years. But those associations became a very important part of their strategy. But I can't answer the question specifically. I'm sorry.
Okay. Can I ask one more question? If we were to look at your Desert Island ads for these last couple of years, what would you say was the standout, particularly in the ad world, that we can have a look at, that these guys can have a look at and break down and dissect? This real standout. I mean, I guess we can look at all the awards, but from your view, I think you would put probably John Lewis right up at the top.
I would put John Lewis right at the
But
top.
what else do you think is a standout?
Virgin Atlantic. They've done some great work in the last couple of years. Great work. Yeah, BA again has been good. Do you see the thing that BA did where the aircraft went down the street? It was the idea was it lands, it takes you
We
into.
have some BA experts here, don't we? Is the one with the BA experts?
Yes, for the Olympics, yeah. Because what they did was, sorry, just picking that up, is they then did an online thing. Do you see it? Yeah, where you put in your postcode, and they cut into the ad where you lived. It was brilliant, absolutely brilliant, very clever. BA, what is it? BA Virgin, John Lewis, recent stuff. No. I'm just thinking. I'm looking for James to give me a. Oh yeah. That's a good example. Cameron's Gorilla. Why?
Because a lot of the results at the time were that the competitive brands in Galaxy did a lot better. They did a lot better because they had a different campaign and they were working with broadcasters and they had much better results.
You didn't qualify your question.
No, I understand that. And that was my qualification that I was taking to it. But that's another story, another day.
But also on that, I'd say that there's an awful lot more that build to sales than just the TV spot. Certainly Gorilla, when you look at things going virally, the question that the lady asked down here about the fragmentation of media, I think that the fascinating thing is how Gorilla, Sony Balls, various other ones, they all went viral. And it's the speed to market. So as a brand owner, which is the role that I have, is needing to be aware of what's happening to your brand and what's being said in social media is the big thing that's happening. You may choose not to do anything about it, you may choose to just let it run, but just knowing what's happening, because actually that can also drive whether you continue advertising or whether you say, you know what, actually it's gone viral, I don't need to do that. And so you can save that media money and invest it in other things. And so actually I think your question about the fragmentation of the marketplace is a lot more challenging, I would argue as well, I agree with Paul, than it was 10, 15 years ago. But it's really about the speed and the plethora of channels and the control that's going back to us as customers, as regular people on the street. So the control is no longer in the brand owner where we used to put it on TV, and that voice would be consistent.
Christy had a question.
Yeah, I just have a question because right, you have only talked about big companies which has a big budget for marketing, and I was just thinking for the small upcoming brands which doesn't have this big budget behind them, how will they be successful in the market to even get started to actually be up with the big players?
Okay. Size doesn't matter. It's all about what you do, obviously, because you can do things. Things can be done very inexpensively. I would say it's always about content. So it's about what is your central organising idea, how is it expressed, is it true to what you're doing? Then it's finding ways of propagating it. For example, making up media strategies. A very, very effective way of getting a small brand big presence is by using outdoor, for example. It's a very simple way of doing it. You can make a brand look huge by buying 5 posters in the right place. So it's just about how it's done. So like I said, it's not to do with scale. Scale helps. It does help, obviously, if you get the funds. But it is not. You don't start there.
I think the other thing to see as well is if you look at a lot of brands that are big now, they weren't always big before. They started small. And if you look at someone like Red Bull, who are big now, but they're very, very dominant, and they stay dominant, and they came from very small. They used very innovative strategies. They didn't have the budgets in the first place, and they have huge budgets now. So that whole way they use that extreme sponsorship was completely different. They've done it, and they use that very economically and develop. Not yes, they've got Red Bull has been advertising now, but they didn't always have that. So looking at those small brands, Guinness included, and they all started small. They all started small, and they have grown by being different and innovative. And this whole thing about being different carries you a long, long way.
The big has such a big idea, doesn't it? Yeah. The big idea was all. You've got a big, strong idea, and whether it's social media or whatever, then people are actually advertising whatever. It's a big idea.
One of the clients we handled was Greenpeace, and Greenpeace never had any money, never. And the things they were trying to change or affect were huge. So we had to find clever ways of using the limited amount of money to provoke. I use it as like a big idea to provoke certain things. So what we were always after, we used paid-for advertising to generate free advertising, basically, by trying to get editorial coverage. So we use advertising to provoke a reaction. So therefore it kind of looked bigger, and it would then kind of get bigger and bigger. What do you want to
There was an example as well in the sports industry, Nike and Adidas, they can make a campaign for each product
Yes.
they launch compared to Adidas, for example. They don't do that, but they create one campaign, like a umbrella
Yeah.
campaign, like for
Yeah.
all of their brands and
Yeah.
products.
They still
And they
understood.
did figure it out.
But they don't have the budgets as Adidas.
And they thought this was Any more questions? Any more burning questions?
I would like to ask your opinion about some of the big brands, such as Apple. Do you think that they will be able to continue to grow on the next years with the pace that they are growing now, or they will at some point reach to their peak? And
Some brands like what?
for example, Apple.
Apple.
Yeah.
Good question. Great question. I don't know. I've got no idea.
Great answers. Yeah.
If I had a crystal ball, I could make a fortune. I think it is inevitable. I said right early on that my sort of life cycle of brand equity strength, it always follows that particular course. It might take 50 years. It might take a year. And one of the issues that most brands confront eventually is market saturation. And with a brand like Apple, which is still doing it incredibly well, will it reach a point of saturation in terms of its penetration of the markets it's in? I don't know, but it's probable that it will do. Now maybe, I said early on about having a navigation on. Maybe they're smart enough to be sitting there going, do you know what it says on this screen in front of me is I can see the iceberg, so I'm now going to take action. So it depends on how companies respond, and it is based on that one chart. Because if they keep doing the same thing and keep going, we're doing only the same thing, the chances are that they will hit a roadblock at some point. But like I said, they're probably clever enough though to avoid it. I thought.
Thank you.
Well, Steve Jobs is around to keep that.